All right, what's going on, guys? Vinland Saga, episode 14, The Light of Dawn. Let's do it!
I believe the choice of voice to judge me, the one and only way I can always see.
This episode of Vinland Saga was absolutely amazing, and out of the 14 episodes thus far, is far and away my favorite. I just love everything about this episode. The snow animation was absolutely fantastic, made you feel like you were actually present, like the sounds and the visuals and the atmosphere. I mean, just absolutely well done. The egregious act of the Vikings coming into the village. I mean, wow, what an episode. But we'll get into that in just a little bit. Let's cover the plot points and what happened in this episode. Now, in terms of what actually happened, it's actually relatively simple. We start off with a village in Wales, and we're focusing on a girl named Anne. She's a redheaded girl, not to be confused with Anne of Green Gables, although I was sort of thinking that when I saw her. I'm like, is this like an adult version of her? But anyway, she looks like she doesn't really fit in with her family and the village. She seems like a bit of an outsider in a way. Everyone in her village sort of believes in God, and they sort of respect the rules and help each other, and they're a family and a cohesive unit, whereas she kind of feels like an outsider. You know, she went to the market one day and bought this ring that she found, and she doesn't really seem to click with everyone else. So during dinner, she decides to leave the table, and she goes out into her yard. It's snowing, and she goes to a tree where she's keeping the ring. She puts it on her finger, and just as she's doing that, the Vikings show up at the village, and they walk into her family's house. And, you know, typical of Vikings, you know, they're just looking to raid. They want to steal all the materials. It's winter time, so they need equipment, they need food, they need a bit of shelter for a while and warmth. So they're just going to take it without asking, as you would expect from some Viking mercenaries. So they pull everyone out of their houses. They get them into a big group, and just then, one of the guys, the father of Anne, starts to plead with Askeladd. He's like, look, just take half of the food. I don't care. Just give us enough where we can survive the winter. You know, we just need half of the food. I have a baby, you know, show some mercy on us. And the guy's like, you must understand our language. And of course, Askeladd does, being originally from Wales. He's just got this look on his face like he's not going to show any sort of empathy to these people. You can almost, you know, with the look on his face, you can almost tell that he's sort of emotionally torn. Like, he doesn't want to kill these people, but at the end of the day, his reasoning makes sense, where, you know, these people could definitely tell the English about their location. They definitely need the materials to make it through the winter, otherwise maybe some of their men might die. So, you know, it's a situation where he knows what he needs to do, and to survive and give himself the best chances of having his Viking mercenaries survive, he has to kill these villagers, make sure there's no remaining survivors, and take all their materials. And there's a great shot at the end of the episode where they're killing all the people. You know, they're taking their axes, they're slaughtering everyone. It's an absolute massacre. And they show this still image of Askeladd, and, you know, he's kind of got his head down, and there's light beaming onto his backside, as though like sort of a symbolic image. Maybe like the light is representative of God, and he's shining his light. He's looking at Askeladd's atrocities, and Askeladd is facing away from the light, and his face is covered in shadows, as though he's turned his back on God and he's embraced the dark side. But there's almost a bit of regret in his face, like he knows what he's doing is not right. And, you know, I mean, like in the last episode, you know, he was talking about how he wanted to protect Wales and the Welsh people, and possibly get rid of the Viking mercenaries he's been hanging around with. But in the very next episode, he's slaughtering the Welsh people. So, you know, he's got to make sure he maintains this image, because, if he's going to betray the Vikings, he's got to make sure that that they think he's on their side until the very end when he cuts them off completely. So Askeladd is such a conflicted character and such a fleshed out character as well. You can tell, even though he doesn't say anything or they don't have any sort of internal monologues, you can tell that he has a lot of tension in his heart and a lot of regret. And just like I said, that still image said it all, really. I mean, it was such a beautiful shot. And I absolutely love Askeladd. And I hope, he sticks around for a little bit longer. Like I mentioned in my previous reviews, I feel like at some point he's going to go. But wow, what a fantastic episode. They didn't even really need to say much. It just kind of spoke for itself. And then the episode ends with Anne. She just saw the massacre of the entire village. All her family members, her mom, her dad, grandma, siblings, they're all gone now. And it's the dawn of day, and she's looking up at the sun, speaking to God, and basically saying that she's elated by the situation. So maybe in a way she felt like she was trapped in the village. She felt obligated to stick with her family and to quote unquote be a good, God-loving girl. But now that she's been released from that obligation, she can finally live a life for herself, where she can do what she wants. So it'll be interesting to see if her character continue to follow her character arc into further episodes. Maybe she'll eventually join up with the Viking mercenaries, or maybe we'll see her later on in a different village. So who really knows? That will be sort of interesting. Now, in terms of Thorfinn and Canute, we didn't really see them much in this episode. I don't even think either one of them said a word, so we didn't really get much insight onto them. This is really an Askeladd-centric episode. Askeladd and Anne. And Anne seems to be an interesting character. I would be fascinated to see how her character arc progresses from here and to see how she'll tie into the story. If she's going to be a permanent cast member, or if maybe they're just going to kind of phase her out in the following episodes. So we'll have to see what happens next week. We'll have to see what happens with Askeladd and the Viking mercenaries. We'll have to see if Thorkel sort of integrates himself back into the story, or if the Yam Vikings sort of come back in the fold. I really expected at some point that they would accelerate the pace of the story, but they continue this methodical, slow-burning sort of atmosphere where they just give you enough to get excited and to get entranced by what's going on, but not too much where you feel like you're overwhelmed or you feel like events are kind of passing you by too quickly. So they're really portraying war and life in a very realistic manner. It's sort of mimicking real life in a sense, where events are going at a very slow pace, but it's interesting enough where it's keeping you on the edge of your seat, and it's really well done. You never feel bored. Like, every little event sort of gives you insight on different characters. Like, we also go into like a bit of the priest as well in the early parts of the episode. We get to learn about him. He seems to know about the warrior who doesn't need a sword to be a true warrior, which I'm assuming that is alluding to Thor's. So how is the priest aware of Thor's? That would be interesting to find out. So, really developing the world in a nice, methodical, expansive way, which makes the series just that much richer. So a fantastic episode. I would say easily my favorite in the series, and I can't wait to see what happens next week. I think we'll leave it there for now, but I'll catch you on the flip side.